Aloha, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of Tales from the Mer World. Welcome to the Mermaid Den. This is a program where we explore the ancient lands of Atlantis and Lemuria. If I'm brand new to you, I'll let you know a little bit about who I am and where I'm located, which is the beautiful island of Kauai, which is known as the heart of Lemuria. The whole Hawaiian chain is a very big, important part of the Lemurian civilization. And Kauai happens to be kind of the apex point or the power point for that ancient wisdom, for those ancient lands and those people. This program, the purpose of this program is Atlantis and Lemuria are very intriguing to many, many people. We all kind of intuitively know or feel, or maybe even have direct experiences with spirit being a part of the Atlantean civilization, of the Lemurian civilization. It's a programming, it's a memory that really lives deep in our DNA and in our cells, where we understand, like we really know that we have had these existences, these lifetimes on these sacred lands. And the purpose of this show is to bring back the ancient knowledge, the wisdom, and really to validate to all of you, if you live in that realm, if you have that understanding that the Lemurian civilization, the Atlantean civilization, the great continent of Mu, was and is an actual place. Now, I am a past life regression therapist. That's one of the many things that I do out in the world. I'm an advanced level past life regression therapist. And one of the things I love to do the best, one of the things that just lights me up the most is when I get to take people on journeys into other lifetimes, to visit, to explore, to look at our gifts, to look at where we may have challenges, and to reconnect our souls back to the concept that we are multidimensional beings. And today's show, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics as a past life regression therapist, which is timelines, multidimensions, and simultaneous realities. We all kind of know, we hear, there's no such thing as time. Time is not linear. Time is a spiral. We maybe hear that we're multidimensional beings, we're living simultaneously more than one life, maybe many, many lives at once. But the biggest question I get is, like, Ameera, how does that work? Like, how do I help my left brain to understand and quantify these big esoteric theories that we're multidimensional beings, that I exist multidimensionally? So one of the things I'm very, very good at is breaking down these big concepts, these big ideas, and making them really understandable to your left brain, to helping us all really be able to interpret these big ideas and break them down and bring them into our field, to bring them into our consciousness, to help really understand that it's not that complicated after all. That with just some simple explanations, and I'm going to go into what Archangel Metatron, who was one of my main guides, what he has explained to me, how to explain to you all about how the multi-dimensions and how simultaneous realities work, how our Oversoul works, right? We all have an Oversoul. We have something greater than us that we are connected to, that is part of the Godhead. We have what's called an Oversoul. And the simplest way to explain an Oversoul, which will then break down into, multidimensional lives and these other aspects, is to give you all a visualization. If you want to picture your Oversoul like the sun. So we'll just use the sun as a representation. As I move through the dialogue, the narrative around this explanation, please know that there are many other explanations from other teachers and healers out there. And if you've heard one of those and they work really great for you, that's awesome. I'm going to give you the very best explanation that I can give, simplify it, and maybe expand your awareness a little bit more on how to understand yourself as a multidimensional being. Understanding myself as a multidimensional being, and in my very first past life regression, I went into the mer world. And I remember being an incarnated mer being, which really set the tone for my career path and everything that I would begin to remember and bring forward in my life to speak to other people about. It also helped me to understand, going through past life regressions in other lifetimes, really helped me understand a lot more about the complexity of my soul, helped me to understand how I am on multiple lines of times having these situations, and these karmic connections and these dharmic connections with other beings, with other souls who are part of my soul family, and how that was interpreting into this lifetime here, how this being was actually connecting to myself on other lines of time. And some of those other realities were influencing me on this lifetime because, we incarnate and reincarnate on different lines of time, really to try and help ourselves. We incarnate to experiment, to have multiple experiences, because, if this is all there was, just me here on this line of time having this experience, if that's all you got to feel was you being in your 3D body in this line of time, that might get kind of boring. So it's really exciting to know that we do come for a multitude of different experiences. We come here to be victim and perpetrator, black, white, straight, gay, male, female, all the things. We really come here to experience the multitude of life. And the more experiences that I have brought others into and exploring their multidimensional self and understanding themselves on this line of time, because, that's what's most important. If we're going to have remembrances, experiences, the benefit is to help ourselves here, to help raise our consciousness, to help resolve any, problems we might be having or any struggles we might be having with other people or with other situations. And again, just to bring that awareness that we come to experience it all. It's very easy to experience a victim lifetime, for example. Very easy, relatively easy to experience being someone's victim. But when we start to explore perpetrator lifetimes where we weren't the good guy, where maybe we did some pretty rotten things, maybe some really dark things, that's when we begin to really understand and integrate and heal our shadows, not only in this lifetime, but understand some of our shadow selves in this lifetime. So I'm going to share with you as we go along a remembrance that I had from Atlantis of not being such a good guy, of not being somebody who was walking in the light and helping in the light. We all have roles karmically that we play and play out within the tapestry of our soul history and the tapestry of the soul groups and the soul families that we incarnate and reincarnate in. And when we begin to pull out those threads, individually, one by one, and really examine them and learn about them, we understand how the ripple effect of our karma, of our dharma, of every choice we make and of the choices that we make before we come in and incarnate onto this planet, we understand how that begins to happen. And we maybe untangle some relationships, or we untangle some patterns, or we find, when the left brain really finds resolution and finds solution to, okay, that's why I have such a strong pull to this person or to this situation, or why I have this pattern with, my family or with my relationships or with food or whatever it is. When we examine those individual lines of time, those individual realities, it begins to explain to us and bring healing and resolution to so many of the things that we're doing that we maybe have going on in this lifetime. And when we understand it, we can heal it, then we can start to not repeat the same pattern, which takes us again off the wheel of karma. So we're going to go a little bit deeper into that into the next segment. But for now, I want to start to explain to you and break down what an oversoul is, how you can wrap your mind around you having an oversoul and then having other aspects and existing on other lines of time. So if you'd like to picture your oversoul like a sun, just visualize a sun in your mind's eye. That's the best analogy that Metatron gave me is the idea of a sun. And so as the sun sends out rays of itself out into the universe, out into the cosmos, the sun is so huge, the sun holds so much light, the sun holds so much energy that if it came down, in one stream or one channel of light to planet Earth, what would happen? Well, the Earth would blow up, of course, because the Earth is not designed to hold that much light and that much energy. So, Source, divine creator, is pretty smart. So when the sun was conceived, creative Source split the rays of the sun up in millions and millions and different particles, different rays, if you will, extended them all out into the cosmos and sent just enough rays of light down to planet Earth so that we could, have warmth from the sun, grow our crops, things like that, have day and night. So your oversoul, if you want to think about your oversoul, picture it like a sun and envision your oversoul holding so much light, like having so much energy that if it all came down as one channel into planet Earth as you, what would happen? Well, your body, our 3D bodies are not designed to hold that much light. We'd blow up, we'd combust, right? Couldn't hold all that light. So your oversoul sends down just enough of a stream of light, just enough energy into this 3D body showing up as you so that you can walk around and do 3D. Remembering that not only are we a third dimensional, 5-sensory, carbon-based body, we are connected to this oversoul. We are connected to this totality of our soul that has many, many aspects or rays or streams of light coming out of it, showing up in all different universes, realities, planets, some of them showing up simultaneously in this reality as other aspects of you on this line of time. Okay, so if you can wrap your mind around the idea that there are multiple versions of you being released from your oversoul, which is of course directly connected to the creator. We are directly connected to our oversoul and connected to the creator. Okay, so if you can and just envision that there are many versions and aspects of you living simultaneously in many other realities and dimensions. Time, we know, or we're told, is not linear. There's not really a past, present, and future. It's a construct that's happened in this 3D world to help us get along. It helps, again, our 3D Earth bodies relate to time through a clock, through a calendar, and through something known as Earth history that involves a past, present, and a future. But in reality, time is like a spiral. Time is like a spiral with layers and layers and layers that don't happen in a linear spiral fashion either. They weave, they bob, they intertwine, they move throughout each other. Okay, so if you can see time as coming in layers instead of coming in linearly, and understand that we exist on many layers of those realities, those time frames, and those universe from our oversoul at the same time, then you can begin to understand the idea or the concept of how we are multidimensional beings. Okay, we are multidimensional beings existing on many realities and many timelines at the same time. Our soul comes in with many purposes, with contracts, and with agreements. And when we come back in a couple of minutes, we're going to break for radio. I'm going to begin to talk to you a little bit more about a wonderful movie called Sliding Doors that I once watched that helped me to really explain how our soul makes choices, and when our soul makes a choice, how we create other lines of times and other realities for ourselves. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. We're going to talk a little bit more about soul paths, soul agreements, soul contracts, not only the ones we make with ourselves and God, but the contracts that we make with other beings also. with our family members, with our friends, and with what is known as our soul group or our soul families. And we're also going to talk about how we're doing ascension. How is ascension actually happening? How are we holding more light, allowing us to rise up into from 3D bodies into fifth dimensional consciousness, taking our third dimensional bodies with us? So we're going to break for commercial here in a few minutes, and I will see you back on Tales from the Mer World Radio. If you are currently watching this on Facebook, if you wouldn't mind just giving a like and a share up to your groups, up to your communities, it would be very, very appreciated. And I will catch you back after the commercial break. Aloha, everybody. You are listening to Tales from the Mer World Radio with me, Ameera Beth. This is a program where we explore the ancient mysteries, the ancient lands of Atlantis and Lemuria. And today the topic is simultaneous lives, multi-dimensions, and how all that works, how we exist on multiple lines of time and in multiple realities. And if you missed the first segment, I went to a really long, beautiful description of the Oversoul and how we are existing on multiple lines of time multidimensionally. And you know, one of the biggest questions that I get asked as a regression therapist, and you know, I work with 13 chakras in the human auric field, and I really help people tap into the idea that of our body as energy and how we can access the multiverse and multi-dimensions through our 13 chakra energy field. On March 15th, I'm going to be teaching a course called Activate Your 13 Chakra Template. That's going to be a course that's taught here on Zoom. I'm going to take you all through your 13 chakra template, take you through the 7 layers of the aura, and we're going to do a meditation through Archangel Metatron and the Gold Ray to actually help us access our multidimensional self and access the idea that through sacred geometry, through meditation, through prayer, all these things that we're doing to help us ascend, that class is going to take place on March 15th at 3 p.m. Pacific time. So if you're interested in taking that course with me, it's only $55. You can go to my Facebook page, Ameera Beth Mer Healer, hit me up on a Facebook message, and I'll get you all logged in. I'll get you all registered for that course. In the meantime, when we left off, I was talking about something. I was talking about soul families and soul groups and soul contracts. So in my understanding, when we come in, we prepare to come into our earth bodies. And especially during this incarnation that, you know, is so important because of the earth changes that are happening on our planet right now. This incarnation that we are currently living on this line of time, in my opinion, is perhaps one of the most important incarnations of our souls ever. Because of the earth changes, because we are ascending, because we are actually changing the spiral of time in this reality. So one of the things I'm pretty known for is my connection to Atlantis and my connection to the Mer people, and helping us all understand how we are rewriting a spiral of time that took place during the fall of Atlantis. We as a collective are rewriting the fall from fifth dimensional beings who came into the third dimension and then attempted to retain their fifth dimensional consciousness. Okay, that experiment that happened, and the last one ended 13,000 years ago, was not a mistake. And it was not about humanity being, you know, terrible people. It was an experiment that happened, an agreement that happened between us and Prime Creator to see what would happen once ego, what we call ego or darkness, was inserted. After Atlantis fell, and in future editions, I'm going to really talk about the last days of Atlantis, because many of us are carrying the trauma, we're carrying the memory, carrying a lot of fear around what happened then, whether we are consciously aware of what happened then and what's going on the earth now. in this experiment, in this agreement with God, we're doing the opposite. We're actually coming in as third dimensional beings and reascending or ascending up to fifth dimensional consciousness. Okay, so we are rewriting, doing a course correction, if you will, on what happened 13,000 years ago with Atlantis. So as I speak to you about all these things happening and about how important this incarnation is to the ascension, the direct ascension of your soul and others around you, I'm going to talk to you about soul agreements and soul contracts. The contract we collectively made, all of us as a collective here on this planet, was to experience dramatic earth changes in order to heal the planet, in order to course correct, if you will, to return to heaven on earth, to return to, the Garden of Eden, of the life that existed in Atlantis and Lemuria before the fall. We made an agreement to come in as, for the most part, unawakened beings, learning to raise our consciousness, learning to heal karma, heal dharma, work together as a collective, as oneness, and recreate heaven on earth and reverse the spiral of Atlantis. Many of us came here to see the earth through to the completion of her changes, to the fruition of all these dramatic things happening. And I call the changes the creative destruction. The way of God in life is to create, destroy, and recreate. Okay, we are in the destruction phase of the creative destruction. Some of us came in to only experience the creative destruction on this line of time up to a certain point. Some came as was in alignment with their soul and their soul path, their soul groups, to only experience it up to a certain point. Okay, and so as we have looked back over decades and we've seen, land masses fall, and we've seen different things that have come up that have returned people back to source energy, individually and collective groups, it's very important that we all remember in the coming times that soul groups and soul families make the choice of when they are going to enter and when they are going to exit the planet. That's a soul individual choice, and that is a choice that is made, an agreement that is made with soul groups and soul families. So soul families may not be your little earth family. It can involve your earth family, but a soul family is more about the collective from your oversoul, or the oversoul is the collective from the oversouls that you have crossed paths with in other incarnations and shared karma. Okay, these soul groups and these soul families make the decisions. They make all the agreements together with our guides and with God about how that interweaving that tapestry of karma and meeting in this reality, how that is going to play out. Some of us come in as perpetrators. Some of us come in as the victims. Some of us come in as the fathers. Some of us come in as the children. Okay, the roles change as we move through the different layers of our incarnations. And so what I really want you to understand is that not everybody has agreed to see the earth through to the next transition on this line of time. So as you experience people that you love, people that you're close to, people around the world who are maybe deciding to return to source in mass groups through natural things that happen, through different viruses or different things that come into play during this incarnation, it's very important for those groups, for those agreements to be honored. Every soul path is unique. Your soul path, my soul path, although they are intertwined, have different purpose. And as we fulfill our karmas and our dharmas with others around us, as we fulfill our karma individually and collectively, and as some of us stay and move through the ascension process until the fruition of our life, and some maybe return to source earlier than we would like. Remember that we are eternal beings. Remember that there is no death. There is only transitioning into different energy form. And our soul is so vast and multidimensional that even though this line of time might have seen itself through to its fruition, on these multiple aspects of ourselves, of yourself, are still very much alive and well. Okay, when I take people in a regression or to meet their guides in a regression, and they transition etherically to the other side, they report that there's really no difference between how they felt in a body and how they feel in the spirit realm. The consciousness is still there. It's the human part of us that grieves and mourns and misses, the 3D body and the attachment and the relationships, because after all, we are emotionally wired built beings. We are emotionally wired and connected to one another. And that's by design. It's supposed to be that way. That's part of why we decide to become human, because we get to have an experience in this human body through our five senses that we don't get to have anywhere else. We get to have a heart connection and a soul connection through the illusion of this reality that doesn't seem very much like an illusion very often, by coming into human form. Okay, so your dharma and your karma are very deeply interlinked. And what that means, as you come back into this reality, and I'm going to segue into how the ascension process is happening for all of us. Okay, we're multidimensional beings. We exist on many, many lines of time. Your existence here and now is very, very important, because the energy you're holding and the karma and dharma. Karma is service. Remember, a dharma is service. Karma is, it's not about just the wrongs we've done in life. You can accrue good karma as well. Good karma through acts of service. Good karma through leading a heart and a soul-led life. Good karma through healing yourself through the divine creator, through yourself. Okay, so karma is not necessarily a bad thing. And we are transcending all the karmic patterns by healing ourselves that we have held and carried for eons. You have probably signed up to heal karma from some of your other aspects on other lines of time. Okay, you have chosen to come into the human form and you went, okay, guys, I'm going to do my job. I'm going to take on much of this karma that's been created through many, many versions of myself. I'm going to take it on in this lifetime, because in this lifetime, I'm going to learn to meditate. In this lifetime, I'm going to, meet a past life regression therapist who's going to help me go into these other realities and meet with them. I'm going to do my shadow work. I'm going to take shamanic journeys. I'm going to be a part of this movement that allows you to visit these other dimensions of ourselves and heal ourselves through ourselves. So a good example of that for me is how I really came in touch with some of my shadow aspects is one day I was reading a book by Dolores Cannon, who was a wonderful influence on my life. Amazing past life regressionist. And I was reading one of her books, and her subject was talking about being in Atlantis and being one of the scientists in Atlantis who was doing genetic experiments on other beings. There were a group of scientists in Atlantis who decided to create hybrid beings, both by slicing DNA, working with the genetic codes, and also through mind control. And I was one of those scientists that, because I wanted to see what happened and because we justified it in the name of science, I remembered, as I was reading the words of this individual, remembering being a part of the scientific experiments. I had a full-blown remembrance of being a scientist and merging beings together just to see what we could create, just to see what could happen. And these beings were in great pain and great shock. And because we were scientists, we justified what we were doing. And when I read that remembrance and it triggered my remembrance, I broke down in tears. I absolutely fell apart reading that book. And I remember just begging, like calling out to the universe how sorry I was, begging for forgiveness and crying these tears. And I realized in that moment, my guides told me in that moment that part of my karma slash dharma, dharma is our service, was to come forward in this life, carry the karma of that other being and many, many other beings who had been what we'd call a perpetrator lifetime, been not good people, been part of the dark forces, and heal them through my acts of service to the world today by coming forward and speaking about Atlantis, by speaking about the Mer people, and helping all of us with this topic known as ascension. We're going to take a commercial break here in a couple of minutes. And when I come back, we're going to talk a little bit deeper about how are you healing yourself? How are we actually ascending? How are we healing ourselves at other lines of time? The answer is actually pretty simple. The spirals of time that we exist on are allowing us the ability, the tools that we are using are allowing us the ability to tap into our other selves and to actually reach those part of ourselves, hold more light, and allow us to do this ascension process. So I'm going to go ahead and break for a commercial right now. And when I come back, that's the first thing we're going to talk about. See you in a few. Aloha, everybody, and welcome back to Tales from the Mer World Radio. My name is Ameera Bath Mer Healer, and this is a program where we explore the ancient lands of Atlantis and Lemuria. You can find me at ameerabath.com. That's my website. You can also find me on Facebook under Ameera Bath Mer Healer. You can also find me on Instagram. I happen to have a sacred geometry clothing company called Wisdom Wear. I micronize crystals into dust and mix them into the ink and then screen print onto organic clothing. So if you love crystals, if you love sacred geometry, nice clothing, you can find me on Instagram under wisdomwear_Kauai. And the topic today is multiple lives, the Oversoul, simultaneous lives, and the multi-dimensions, and what that all means, and how to understand ourselves as a multidimensional being, how to really wrap our brain around that. And when I left off, I was talking about ascension and how we are ascending, how we are holding more light. So we have all these other aspects of us that we have made agreements with for karma, for dharma, for healing, these soul groups, these soul families. As you and I are discovering techniques like shamanic journeying, doing our shadow work, reading our self-help books, doing past life regressions, praying, meditating, all of those things, and raising our awareness of all the tools that are available to us to help ourselves, we're actually healing ourselves on other lines of time. So when a soul passes, if there's unfinished business, if there's regrets, if there's all these things that might not allow a soul to fully decide or even be aware that we can transition back to source, back to the creator, what happens is something called an earthbound spirit, or a spirit that might get kind of stuck in the life they were supposed to release because either they didn't understand they could return to source, or they passed with some regrets and unfinished business. And when we pass from this earth with regrets and unfinished business, it keeps us tethered to the earth experience, and it keeps us tethered to the people around us that maybe we feel indebted to, or maybe we feel angry at, or maybe we just didn't wrap up our karmic business with. So as you as an awakened being are learning to utilize all these tools and tapping into the other aspects of yourself who see you and who know you are here and are maybe knocking on your energy field, poking at you, saying, hey, I've got this thing over here I need to heal. And you're working with this wonderful healer over here who does this work, who can help us both. Okay, as we are becoming aware, consciously or unconsciously, that these things are happening, and going in and helping ourselves and our other selves, we're allowing these other aspects of ourselves to transition back up to spirit. We're helping them complete their business. I have actually helped through regression therapy, helped a client return their entire soul group or soul family or community that they passed with, return them back up to spirit. I've helped them return their other aspects who might just be kind of hanging out, not aware that it's time for them to go back. That influence that we have from our other aspects who are peering into us on this reality of time, that can help us or hurt us both ways. If you have other aspects that are looking for heal, that are looking for resolution, and there's something happening in your life that you can't quite explain, why you can't break free of a pattern, why you can't, heal something up in your life, some kind of thing happening, most likely it's tied to another aspect of you. So as we are becoming aware of those consciously and unconsciously and changing ourselves, we're allowing those other aspects of ourselves to return back to source. So what do you think happens if there's all this wattage, all this energy coming out, showing up as us, as there is less coming out because we're helping people return back up to source creator? What do you think is going to happen to that line of time that you are on, that I are on, as there's less coming out and more streaming down as us? What's happening is we're starting to ascend because we're starting to be able to hold more light. So that's really what that means when you hear hold more light, or we hear that, our DNA, or that coming from a carbon-based to a light-based being. That's one of the major ways that we're doing it. We are doing course corrections and healings on our other selves, not only on this being, but on the ripple effect that we're having on all other lines of times and realities and our other aspects. So there was a really great movie that came out several years ago with Gwyneth Paltrow called Sliding Doors. And if you've ever wondered, how we are creating parallel lines of time, like how parallel lines of time happen, what happens when we make a decision and we jump another timeline. And right now we're hearing a lot out in the metaphysical community about timeline jumping. Timelines coming in and us making a new choice, or something happened that brings in a timeline that sets us on a different course. So that can happen in many different ways. That can happen. It happens anytime we make a major decision in our life, and even a small decision. We separate off a timeline. When you decide to leave a relationship, when you decide to, take on a new career path, when you decide to make a move someplace else, when we make these bigger life decisions, we jump a timeline. Timelines also happen on our kind of extended forth by Prime Creator. Okay, collectively, we go on different timelines, like the earth, or even your community, or your town, or your state, or your country might be on one line of time. And then something happens, a course correction happens from the Prime Creator because those agreements, because of those soul groups, that sets you and your soul family, or even you individually, on a different line of time. So what happens when we jump timelines, when we make a decision because we are following our soul-led, our heart-led life? For instance, a really big one for me was when I chose to move from Portland, Oregon 4 years ago and come out to Kauai, because my soul said it was time for me to come to Kauai and create my world here. When I made that separation and released that life and formed this new one, I felt the timeline different. I felt the other aspects of me that are here to support me on that journey, on my mission. I felt my oversoul. I felt my guides and angels come in and do kind of a merging with my intentions and help me create that other line of time. So this movie Sliding Doors that came out several years ago, that gives a really wonderful explanation of parallel lives. And parallel lives happen to us all the time. We're on one line of time, we're on another line of time, and exists simultaneously. And the one that we are giving more energy to is ultimately the one that's going to kind of take over, or the one we're going to have the strongest experience with. So when I tell you, you come in with agreements and with karma and with a destiny and with a soul-led path, when there is something that your soul is taking on an assignment, when your soul takes on an assignment and takes on a mission, those things are going to happen for you no matter what choices you make. So, if you see your soul path, like ideally it's like this, right? It's like a straight line, right? But most of us kind of go like this, and our choices take us like this. We go in and we go out, crossing our soul path, always coming back to it, but maybe veering off, doing something else for a little while. Maybe going into this relationship or taking this job, or having this experience, because as free will beings, that's what we get to do. We get to have free will. However, our soul has an agenda. Our soul has an agenda, and it has something that we are working towards that it will not release no matter what we do. So we're constantly getting these course corrections. Sometimes they feel good, sometimes they don't feel so good, the course corrections, right? Universe puts us back in place on our soul path, no matter what we do. And the example of that in the movie is Gwyneth Paltrow's character is in a relationship. She's not in a very healthy relationship. And she jumps on a subway one day with this really wonderful man, gets to know him. He's really great. They hit it off. And before she exits the subway for her stop, he invites her for coffee. And she thinks about it for a moment. And in the first scenario, because she's in a relationship, although she really wants to, she says no thank you, and she jumps off the train. Sliding doors close, and she goes off back to her relationship with her partner, who is not very kind to her. Then we cut to the next scene. Same scenario. She gets on the train. She sits down next to this lovely man. They talk. They hit it off. Before she gets off at her stop, he asks her to join him for coffee. And in this scenario, she says yes. The doors open. The doors close. She continues down the railway with this man. She meets him. They have a wonderful time. He's amazing. They hit it off. She ultimately breaks up with her boyfriend. So she set herself off on a new reality, on a new destiny, on a new timeline with this guy who ultimately she thinks should be her partner. And the show goes back and forth between two realities. In one reality, she's with the bad boyfriend, the boyfriend who's not good to her, and all these things happen to her. In the other reality, it shows her with the new guy, and her life is great. It's all wonderful. So in the reality with the other boyfriend, she gets pregnant. And the reality with the good boyfriend, she gets pregnant. Okay? Simultaneously, the movie's taking you back and forth through these two realities. In the reality with the first boyfriend, they get in a fight and he pushes her down the stairs or something like that. And she loses the baby and she ends up in the hospital. In the other scenario with the good boyfriend, with the new boyfriend, she gets pregnant. And something happens. And I think maybe she gets hit by a car. And she ends up in the hospital. In both scenarios, she loses the baby. So she's got these two simultaneous things happening, with the destiny ultimately being this man who will be her partner. And even though through the other choice, through the other reality, she did not choose that path, she went back to the boyfriend, she still went to the hospital through this interruption in her pregnancy. And I think she miscarried the baby in both. Okay, she's there in both scenarios. She makes a decision in the hospital that she's got to leave this boyfriend because he's abusive, because he's not good to her. So the last scene, she walks out of the hospital and she goes to the elevator, and the sliding doors of the elevator open up, and guess who is inside? Her man, her destiny. She gets in, she takes one look at him, you see her smile, okay? The sliding doors close, and suddenly both timelines have merged. And her reality and her destiny have become one, even though she made this other choice, and her free will brought her through all these difficult experiences. Prime Creator is pretty smart. knows and understands that sometimes when really tragic things happen for us, they're happening to realign us on our destiny. Okay, so she had to experience this abuse. She had to experience a miscarriage. She had to experience the pain and trauma of being with what her soul was not choosing in order to align her with the destiny of her soul. So if you have something your soul is assigned to, if you have a destiny, what I'd like you to know, and this is going to be your pearl from the Mer world before we exit. We've got just a few minutes left. Your pearl from the Mer world is to fully realize that your soul path, your soul destiny is yours. No matter what you do, your soul and its divine guidance in conjunction with your guides and angels will always, always lead you back to your destiny. No matter how bad you felt you have messed up, what belongs to you, what is assigned to your soul, will always be yours. And you cannot mess that up. Okay, so for your pearl of the wisdom for today is to remember and recognize that your soul is way smarter than you are. And as we go about trusting the universe, trusting God, trusting our guides and angels, and trusting that life is for us, not only do we start to maybe make smarter, easier choices, better choices, not so much karmic involved, but dharmic involved. Service to soul. Karma is not only the service to others. Dharma is really service to yourself. Dharma is really about showing up for yourself and making choices that align you with your soul path fearlessly and tremendous amounts of trust, and knowing that you are forgiven, you are held in grace, you are held in love, you are held in light. This experiment that we all are participating, known as planet Earth, that is realigning, rewriting the spiral of Atlantis and Lemuria, turning us back to the Garden of Eden, turning us back to Source and the Creator, all begins and ends with our ability to fall into the grace of trust with our soul and of God. Thank you very much for listening today. Again, you can find me at ameerabath.com. Going to be teaching a wonderful class on March 15th on activating your 13 chakra template. We're going to go deeper into the multidimensional self, deeper into the 7 layers of the aura, and working with Metatron and actually connecting to our multidimensional selves through the archangels. Thank you for allowing me to express myself today, and I wish you all love and aloha.